Andrew will be taking us through what he's created and called the Hip Big Three, or the Power Big Three. This is great for activating the muscles surrounding the hips, but then also integrating movement patterning. So optimally to be performed before we start performing.
Yep.
Take it away, Andrew.
This is what we tend to do, whether we're deadlifting or whether we're squatting or even going for a run. The idea here is we're going to activate the glutes into some patterns of movement. Now, Tilly, what I'm going to get you to do, I'm going to get you to start by lying on your back on the bench. Feet are on the ground. So we're going to be performing basically what is the clam movement by pushing out against the band. If you can there, Tilly, do a few reps. I don't mind if the band's just above the knee or just below the knee, as long as it's around the knee. Tilly's feet can roll out in this position, that's no problem. What I'm looking at is abduction, external rotation. The genius is what we're doing here is we're starting the body in basically what we call 0 degrees. Straight line from shoulder to hip to knee. In an evolutionary sense, this is where glute max performs its strongest movements from. This is where we have our best mechanical advantage. It comes related to how we walk. The knees are bent again because we're taking the hamstrings out of it. This is where glute max is being recruited into abduction and external rotation, which of course is a hip extender, but we're going to do that in a minute. We're getting into it by this position here, which is where it has its best advantage from. Normally about 25 reps for the band. So we'll call that 25, all right? Now, I'll get you to sit up on the bench and then sit down in front of the bench. We're going to translate this straight into a hip thrust. So, driving up with the hips and out against the band, Tilly, and back down. As you come up, you can drop your chin to your chest, nice and tight, and that's bringing the brace of the abs in without having to over-cue it. Is by bringing the chin to the chest, you'll bring the abs in. Tilly's going to, once again, finishing up at the same position that we started the clam. Concept here is we're coming into the strongest position on the hip thrust with the glutes being activated. So the plan here, priming them with the supported position, putting them into the hip thrust movement. Now glute max is really performing well, as are the other hip extenders. Good, once again, I like 25 reps here. We'll call that 25. Good, Tilly. Now sit up on the bench. Now we're going to then translate this now. Sit a little bit further back there, Tilly, so you got lots of room. We're going to now put this into a squat. The thing about a squat is I'll get you to push out against the band, then stand up there, Tilly. Good. Hips back, knees out, that's our cues. So away you go. Push the hips back, knees out against the band, and away we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to do touch and go. So touch the bench, and up you come. Drive. Now here is where the hip extensors, as far as the glutes go, the glutes are at a mechanical disadvantage. This is where the hamstrings, the adductors, have more mechanical advantage. But because we warmed them up through the other two movements, the glutes are now activated prior to everything else. They're going to provide great hip extension, and also we've had the resistance into abduction and external rotation with the band, which is the glutes job, not the hamstring and the adductors. So this is the way we're adding the glutes into this brilliant movement, and we're getting a hip hinge there, which is great. Now, Tilly, you can take that and hold that as far away. We can add a counterbalance, and we're just going to be increasing the core work. So the core work now increases by adding a counterbalance into it. This is something you can also play with, but the movement is still the third movement, it's the squat. This is great. This is super work, Tilly. You look tight through the core, driving that hip hinge, feet looking good, in the same line as the thigh. That's the perfect series of the Power Big Three. Beautifully done, Tilly. You can give me that break and take a break. Got a burn? Yeah. Fantastic. That's how the Power Big Three is done. Should be done prior to any performance of any exercise that we're doing with lower body.
If you like that and want to see more, click here to see more butts.